Hi, my name is Missy Cohen, and I am the host of New Beginnings to Health. As a health coach, people frequently ask me about their children and how to take care of them. They want to make sure that they don't end up overweight, diabetic, and with hormonal imbalances like the things I've sent them to me. So I've invited my friend Barbara Haimowitz to be with me today. She is a food strategist, and she helps parents to nourish their children. Hi Barbara, thank you for coming.
Hi Missy, thanks for having me.
So tell me, how did you end up being interested in children's health and children's nutrition?
Well, I always had an interest in nutrition, but I worked as a preschool teacher for 15 years, and included in that position I did the lunch bunch, which was to help children unpack their lunch, eat their lunch, and get them through the half hour of lunch. Mm-hmm. And it just amazed me at how much waste there was. How often kids would say to me, I don't like that. My mother packed something I didn't like. And I said, really? Why would you do that? And just watched for years and came to the conclusion that parents were really not skillful enough to figure out how to make a healthy lunch that their children would eat.
And I don't think that's anybody's fault. It's the nature of things these days.
It's really just not understanding exactly how to get a child involved so that they own their lunch, mm-hmm. and also what would overwhelm a child. So, their lunch boxes were way too full. A whole piece of fruit that you can't peel, they have to ask a teacher. And it's a social time, so they really are preoccupied with a lot of things, not being able to open up a container.
Right. So you brought some containers today. Why don't you talk about what are some ways to help our children to eat their lunches?
Well, I think that it's really important to think about portion size with children. Mm-hmm. Even when you buy a yogurt that they take off the top, which cannot be replaced, they now make these yogurt containers that don't have the tops. So you have a 6 ounces or 7 ounces of yogurt, and the child finally gets it open, and it's too much for them. Mm-hmm. And they really, right, and it has to be mixed sometimes, which is a skill that they may not be able to do. And they open up everything in their lunchbox, they rip everything open, and then they only eat like a bite of this, a bite of that, and a bite of this. So I recommend small containers, and also the new thing, which is a wonderful thing, and is these bento kind of, where there's different compartments, dipping. Kids love to dip. Mm-hmm. They really like to, fresh vegetables with a dip is an excellent thing. Yogurt in a small container in which they can open and close themselves. This has a place for a sandwich, but it could be an ice pack. It could be, slices of meat or cheese, which you cut out with little cookie cutters so that it's inviting, it's exciting. You can make sandwiches also in small, they like finger food.
Excellent, great. So you mentioned like packing up hummus or packing up maybe some yogurt. So to save money and time, what would you do?
Well, I'd get a big yogurt, plain, start with plain.
Plain yogurt.
And have your child involved, because the more a child's involved in fixing their lunch, they have ownership and they really feel a part of it. And they're also packing what they want to eat. Mm-hmm. So I always suggest maybe on Sunday taking a big yogurt, having smaller containers, 5 of them. You can do it in a blender, you can just put the fruit in and have whatever kind of yogurt a child wants. You can add in.
So you can throw in some frozen berries.
You can throw in berries, bananas.
Chop up an apple and put some chopped apple in it. You could
put honey in it for the sweetener rather than have the sweeteners in the pre-prepared fruit ones, which are very high in sugar. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a sugar content in yogurt because it's just really coming naturally from the dairy.
Right.
But and I also suggest for children whole milk. Mm-hmm. A lot of parents are giving fat-free and low-fat, and children need fat for their brain development. So they're not going to get fat from the good fat. Mm-hmm. You don't want to give them sugar, and you don't want to give them other things that contain fat, like trans fats and snacks. But there's nothing wrong with avocados. There's nothing wrong with dairy.
And you refer to children in that. I would say that goes for everybody, not just kids. That that we as a population need to go back to having whole foods, having things that contain fat. And this is a natural fat. And when they take the fat out of this, what they do is they replace it with sugar.
Well, it's absolutely true. And actually, if you track when America started to become overweight, obese, and have diabetes, it was in the early 70s the numbers started zooming, and that's when the low-fat diet became the recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that many people are now finding that they're lactose intolerant, and that has been associated with ear infections in children. So if they're lactose intolerant, but their kids enjoy yogurt, what are some options?
Well, I myself don't have dairy, so I've really looked far and wide, and I found that this coconut milk yogurt is excellent. It tastes very similar once you've added your fruit and some honey or maple syrup, and it does the trick. It's got the texture and the taste.
Now, I have some foods out, some vegetables, I have some hummus, I have some fruits. The avocado, I know what I have found with my own children is if you cut the avocado in half and you leave the pit in, it doesn't go brown right away.
That's correct.
And my son will actually take that for school and eat half an avocado for lunch. But that being said, how would you package this up? You know, a lot of parents say, "Oh, my kids would never eat vegetables." Let's talk about that. Why is that?
Well, the first thing I want to say is children are born with a clean slate. They are not born knowing that they're going to eat healthy or unhealthy. They really go by example. And in the American household, a lot of parents prepare separately for their child. It's just quicker. They don't want to eat children-friendly food, but children in France, you know, they've been doing studies. They eat healthy. Their parents would never think of preparing anything different, and they get a wide variety of taste. And although you may be born with a taste that you don't like something, if you try it and you don't like it, you know, that's fine for a child. Don't force it on them, and just try another alternative. Children like to dip. Children like finger food. Children don't do well with big sandwiches. Children don't do well with whole bananas even, or whole oranges. This is a nice little apple. They might do all right with an apple this size. But look for the small apples.
But even that, wouldn't you recommend maybe cutting that up and mixing it with some cinnamon?
You know what? It depends on the age of the child.
Right.
You know, but I think by the time they're like 4 or 5, biting into an apple is fine if they have all their teeth and they haven't started losing their front teeth yet. But again, you know, I look at what you have there, and I could see a variety of, you know, even if you put it in here, you could put the vegetables in here.
Little hummus.
And then you could put a little hummus, and you could put some dip. You can put another one in there.
Now, would you say that this is too much food for a preschooler?
I would do like 2 sticks, you know, a few things.
2 carrot sticks.
2 carrot sticks.
Maybe a piece of pepper.
Whatever the child really likes. I would ask them what they want.
Right.
But I wouldn't do it the day of the lunch because it's too busy in the morning, and that's the problem. So you want to lay out stuff so that you have 5 of these, all different yogurts, that you have little baggies with all of the vegetables, and the child that morning could pull, I'll have this vegetable, I'll have that vegetable, I'll have that.
So when would you do that? When would you lay everything out, so to speak?
I would
Plan for the
say
week?
Sunday is a great day. I think a lot of people do that already. You do your shopping. I say take an hour of quality time with your child and have them help you cut up the vegetables. They'll have ownership. They'll feel real proud. If you're using cookie cutters, there's no better, you know, take the slice of cheese and have them cut out the shape they want and put it, you know, wrap it up in some
Saran wrap?
Well, I wouldn't use saran wrap. I don't like to use plastic too much, but you certainly can use the I'm trying
wax
to think.
Paper?
Wax paper would be perfect. Yeah, so you could sort of see through it.
Yep.
And just, you know, put it in portion sizes. Again, depending on your child's appetite, but you know, 2 pieces of something each. 3 things, that's 6 pieces of something.
So you're saying put 3 things in the lunchbox so that they don't have too much to choose
Right,
from.
a little variety,
a little
variety. Ask them what they want. Have it all ready to just pull, and it's modular, and it goes in here. And stress to your child that not to waste. You know, be realistic about the size. And I think that children really appreciate having food that they've helped make, as well as that they picked and they like.
I wanted to talk a little bit about snacks because I know snacking is a big thing. So, this is something that you would buy. I always say don't buy your food where you buy your gasoline, but some people do. Right. So this is a snack you might pick up at a gasoline station, for example. So can you talk to this Ritz Bits with cheese?
Yeah, so this is like really a quick snack that parents would love for two reasons. It could fit right into a cup holder.
Right.
That's what it's meant to do. And kids love, Ritz crackers, right? And what's wrong with that, as we would all say. And the first thing I'd like to say is that this is considered 3.5 portions. I don't know too many children who wouldn't down this entire thing if they were in the back of a car or sitting watching television. It's not very large.
Right.
So if you ate the whole package, you're getting 520 calories.
Wow.
And you could just feed, the sodium is a day's worth, and there's no fiber, and there's 14 sugars. So ultimately, it's a poor snack. It's going to be a quick high. It's going to be a lot of calories. If you're worried about weight with your child, here's what you should be worrying about. Not avocados that are considered high in fat,
right.
Not nuts if your child is able to eat nuts, not real food. This is what I would be frightened about. So it's 3.5 servings.
The other thing that truly frightens me as a health coach is how much soda people consume. And I think that starts at a very young age. People are like, oh, soda is fine, what's the big deal? So we have here a bottle of Coca-Cola. And I would love for you to address the sugar that's in that bottle of Coca-Cola.
Well, the thing about this bottle of Coca-Cola, it's not even a big one.
How many ounces is that?
This is 20 ounces, which is really considered in today, you can go into a store and buy, 32 ounces in a cup, and people will down that, mostly adults, but you're training. Children are in training to be adults, and we have to remember that. This is a small one. A parent might even say, well, this is not so bad, one a day, So this is really considered 240 calories. Okay.
For the whole thing.
Right, but it's considered 2.5 portions. Again, no person is going to sit down. A child can finish this
easily.
Watching TV or something, right? So if you had the whole 2.5 portions, you're getting 65 grams of sugar.
Oh my God, how many teaspoons is that, Barbara?
So it's 4 grams. So the math is
4 grams per teaspoon.
Per teaspoon. So we're dealing with like 19.
Oh my goodness, 19 teaspoons of sugar?
19.
So if we did just one serving of that, we have our sugar here.
I don't even know if we have enough sugar. We can find out.
Well, let's find out. Let's do the math.
So, well, let's do what a serving is, which is 20, which is 2.5 servings in here. So you have to divide that. 27 grams for one serving. Not the whole bottle was 65.
So it's like 7 teaspoons of sugar. 1,
2,
3, 4, 5. Do we have enough sugar?
We're gonna make it. And I haven't, and you know what? I'm not even sure these are full teaspoons.
Right.
So this is what you're putting into your child just for a drink.
But that's one serving, and then
that's one
multiply
serving,
that by
which is
2.5.
really only from here up, or this one down. So you have to 2.5 times this sugar.
In one shot.
It would just destroy your child's internal workings eventually.
Yeah. And that's not even talking about their
And
teeth.
make them more addicted and really start craving sugar, but if the behaviors may change because it's a real sugar rush, there's no value in putting this much sugar into any human being's body. It overworks the pancreas, and that's how we get diabetes.
Right. And I spend much of my time working with clients getting them off of the sugar high.
But while we're talking about this, let's be more clear about the fact that here's something that I found in a lot. I literally asked a little girl who didn't eat this, can I take this home with me? And she said, yeah, you can have it. I have lots more in my house. And so it's, here it is. We have these licensed, this is Dora the Explorer, Snow Princess. It's so small. Parents really feel, what's the harm? And I say, well, not much, except here's the sugar in it.
It's pretty much the entire thing is sugar.
Exactly. And we can be running out in the morning and we really can't get breakfast, and you say, oh, oatmeal to go. That, this is not that bad. We'll eat this and we'll quickly nourish our child. Well, it has 19 grams of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons. This is what you're feeding your child in the morning, which is more than a day's worth almost, or just about. And when you start to look at sugar as 4 grams per, and you start to realize that there's no food value at all, and it's something that just alters.
Substance.
Right. So if you want to have anything with sugar, so I've had people say, well, what's the difference? This has a lot of sugar.
It does.
Oranges are very high in sugar. The difference is if you ate a whole orange, it has a lot of fiber, and it slows down how your body processes the sugar, and you're not spiking and falling down. And the last thing you need your kid to do is fall down in the middle of school.
Right. That's when they fall asleep.
That's right,
And
and
they
they
get
stop
hungry.
listening.
They stop listening and they get hungry because their body is looking for more food to make up for
And
the
they
insulin.
behave poorly.
Right, and that's a problem.
And that's a problem too.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about reading labels. It's very important because, you know, an avocado does not have a label to read. So it's pretty basic, pretty easy. And you talk about starting with kids when they're in preschool, starting very young to teach them what proper nutrition is and how to eat. And I think that's fabulous. So how do you work with somebody that young on reading labels?
Well, I don't think there is any age that's too young. First of all, we should always be feeding them as healthy as we understand we should. But once a child is starting, cannot even read, let's say we're starting with a child that can't read, you can take that child and you can show them the label and the ingredients, and if it's a long list, have them just count, because we know kids can count to 10 by the age of 3 or 4.
Right.
Have them count the number of things that are in, how many ingredients, how many things are in here. Once they get past 5, I'm not sure that's healthy anymore, honey. Once they start reading, if they can't pronounce it, we can't eat it.
I love that.
You know, so if you have a really smart child that can really learn to read well by 7 and pronounce a lot of chemicals, which I still can't pronounce half of them, then you have to say to them, because, you know, we're not eating anything you can't pronounce.
Right.
What is that?
Right.
If they know what it is, which they won't, because I don't know what it is, then it's probably should be off limits. I think it's math. You could do 4 grams of sugar. When a child gets a little bit better in math, how many grams of sugar in here, and they could start really talking about it. Take your children shopping. I hear so many parents saying, oh, but it's such a pain, and they want to do this, and all of the food that's their eye level. But if you make it a hunt for healthy foods, and you have these little rules, how many ingredients are we going to have? So if they pick up something, and I could just, you know, if they pick up something like this, and you
Pop-Tarts.
just, Pop-Tarts, which are blueberry muffin flavored, and there are no blueberries in it, which is interesting. But if a kid picks this up and they want it, then, you know, look, it's a large number of ingredients, okay? You don't have to get so heavy on how many calories, how many sugars, because that's a little bit more difficult for a young child. But how many of these, and then what are they? And it's incomprehensible.
Right.
Well, where's the blueberries? What is it? And so I think you could start your child to be like a detective. And they get involved and they're excited and they can have a list and they can really work with you while you're hunting down the healthy foods and while you're rejecting foods. Both of you reject the foods. Oh,
And
no,
finding
no.
out why you're rejecting
Right.
the
Oh,
foods.
we can't eat that. It has, I can't pronounce it.
Right.
You know?
There's
Right.
too many chemicals in there. I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
Right. So let's talk about the Cheerios. Yeah, I can't reach.
Well, Cheerios has made a great campaign, and actually it works well. They're one of the first things young kids can eat because they can pick it up and put them in their mouth, and they really have, you know, less than 1 gram of sugar in a serving. So it's not bad. So we all get, you know, habituated to buy Cheerios for our kids. Cereal in itself is a little debatable as a breakfast, but it's easy. So let's say you do Cheerios. Shortly down the road, some kid's going to say honey nut. Well, honey, we all think that's healthy, okay? Right. My guess is there really isn't very much honey in here. But ultimately, once you start taking Cheerios and do all of the other kinds that they have, and there's about 5 or 6 kinds. You have the frosted, then you have the honey nut. They're high in sugar. That's the first thing you're doing about it. And they have a bunch of other ingredients suddenly. And I don't have a sample of it now, but even their whole grain, which you think, okay, I'm just going to go from this to the whole grain. It doesn't mention anything about honey or sugar, but the whole grain has a lot more sugar. So be careful when you get conditioned to think a brand is good, and then you just reach for that brand that has a slight twist and it seems healthy because it's now got honey in it. So my thought always is, you use as little to no sugar in the breakfast cereal and add the teaspoon. You can add 1 teaspoon rather than have 4 teaspoons.
Which, things like oatmeal, the ingredient on oatmeal is oats.
Yeah.
And then you can feel free to add your fruit to it, to add a little bit of maple syrup or honey to it if
Exactly,
you need it
or
sweeter.
coconut sugar, which is an excellent alternative as well if a kid wants to sprinkle and it feels like real sugar.
Yeah.
'Cause
They make now gluten-free Cheerios. Would you like to talk to that?
well, I'm hesitant of most gluten-free alternatives. I think that, yes, it may work if you want to have sugar. You want to have a cereal and you need to have a gluten-free cereal. But, gluten-free products are not any healthier. So don't just go to them thinking it's healthier to be gluten-free. And many of them actually aren't as healthy at all. So if you don't have to be gluten-free, don't just reach for it thinking it's more healthy, because it's a fad for some people. Some people really cannot tolerate gluten, and in that case, obviously you're going to go to a gluten-free product or start baking yourself. I'm a big proponent. Cook with your children. Make the snacks. Do the work. Let them see what it means to mix ingredients. Experiment.
Let's talk about that. So we have here Rice Krispie treats, the original
Perfect example.
Rice Krispie treats, and we have the ingredient list that we can put up on one of the slides. So the ingredient list is pretty surprising considering what a Rice Krispie treat is.
Well, there's a lot of ingredients in it, and each ingredient may possess more ingredients, like the marshmallow.
The soy
So
lecithin.
the marshmallow has, sugars and gelatins and corn syrups, which is really something to try to avoid with children. And it has a nice list. We have a recipe that will show you that you can, easy to make with your children. It's not a baking, it's the same as making these fresh, not baking, and not using the marshmallow. You can use peanut butter, you can use soy butter, you can use, if your child is peanut free, because a lot of the schools are peanut free now, even if you're not peanut free.
Right.
And you can actually make it with 3 or 4 ingredients. It's just delicious. Every kid loves it.
And it's fun to make.
It's fun to make. They lick their hands, they get to see what's in it, and you can make shapes, then you can cut them out into shape, you can do whatever.
Yeah,
So-
it's great. It's a great way.
And it goes with all snacks. It's so easy to make snacks.
So if your kid really says, okay, Mom, this is great, I'm eating my fruits and vegetables, but I need a treat. I need something at the end of my lunch that's sweet. What would you suggest?
Well, the easy out, and I've seen a lot of parents put in like cookies like this. You go to the bakery.
The really big ones.
So let's say you really are going to allow your kid to eat cookies. Forget the most healthy. Take that cookie at the beginning of the week and cut it into 5 pieces. There's no reason a child should have a huge cookie. Okay, so if you make your own cookies, make them small, but you can make these that we have. You can make date balls. You can make things out of natural ingredients. You can go on the internet. It's a wonderful resource to go for healthy 2-3 ingredient snacks. And most of them are sweetened with either a fruit,
like dates?
or dates, or coconut sugar, honey. Raw honey is an excellent, maybe you won't use raw too young for your child, but a local honey is a great idea.
Yeah, local honeys are really good. They help with allergies.
They absolutely do.
A little bit of local honey every day can help reduce the symptoms of allergies.
Right,
So it's really good.
because of the pollen. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything
And the other thing
else
I'd
you'd
say,
like to talk about?
if you want to just buy a snack,
Yeah.
here it is, freeze-dried fruit, apple crisps. It's high in sugar because it's dried fruit, but it's okay in small quantities, but it's one ingredient.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying before when you're reading the ingredient list, to make sure that less than 5 ingredients on your list. That is certainly an example of that, where it has apples.
Right, and as you pointed out, you go to the store and broccoli doesn't have an ingredient list, and avocados don't have an ingredient list because that's just what it is.
So, there's a big push right now, organic versus conventional. And, you know, I am a proponent for organic produce, especially munchkins, little kids who have to process these things through their liver. So how do you feel about that?
I'm firm also that I think the ingredients in anything we eat should always be organic, but it's not practical for some people because it's expensive.
True.
So I always recommend to my clients, go online or I'll hand them. There's a list of, you know, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And if you follow that, and even that's another thing you could do with your children, give it to them, let them hunt it out. Because the Clean 15 will tell you, they test every year. There's different things on it, but they stay pretty close. They're going to test the residue of the pesticides and see how much of it actually comes out in the end product. And the ones that come out with the least, some you would automatically think, a thick-skinned fruit, for instance. But cauliflower's on that, but yet broccoli is on the Dirty Dozen. So you can't make assumptions, but there are some things that you really, really should try to always get organic. It just is so high in pesticides.
And along that line, I just noticed recently that apples have been on there quite a few years in a row as one that you definitely should buy organic on.
And it's a #1 snack. And you know, the have an apple a day, keep the doctor away, which is true. I mean, true to the point, it's a very healthy snack, but not if it's not organic. But there are stores that have bags of little organic apples for children, and it's a great way.
Yeah, I have to say my son's 19, and this is what we refer to as a Ben-size apple. I have here a spiralator, and this is just another example of another fun way to make food for your kids.
It's an excellent way. First of all, if you have the gluten-free child, if you took a zucchini or a summer squash and you put it through the spiralizer and you quickly sauteed it with some whatever seasoning, it becomes a noodle. And you could put, you know, meatballs on top of it, you could put vegetables on top of it, and you will have like a noodle. But it's also a fun way for kids to eat. Kids like, you know, stringy would be fun, so you could take your carrots, you could take your, I wouldn't do cucumbers, but I certainly would, because they're probably too watery, although you might be able to take...
Zucchinis work.
Zucchinis work really well, and maybe those hothouse English cucumbers might work, because they don't have seeds in it.
Right.
So yeah, a spiralizer is a great tool.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience about keeping their kids healthy, feeding them good foods?
Well, I think we're the models for our children. Again, I said I think kids grow up with a clean slate. You know, they're born with a clean slate. It doesn't take very long for them to be contaminated with ads, and there's a huge industry that just preys on our children to get them to want to eat certain things, and lo and behold, if they do eat them, they will very shortly desire them and their taste buds will need them. So I think it's our job to really address what is healthy with our children. Don't think that they don't know. Keep them in the loop. Keep them actively involved. They will eat for the rest of their lives, and what they eat will determine how healthy they are. So the most important thing you could do is really give them the quality of time to learn to cook, to learn to shop, and to learn to eat and discriminate between healthy and not healthy foods.
Very well said. Thank you, Barbara.
I love being here. Thank you.
It's awesome. So Barbara is the owner of
Keeping Healthy,
and you can contact Barbara at keepinghealthy.info. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.